Hello, this is Sarah Tuberty, your host from Disarming Disability. Enjoy the following program on Public House Media.
I paused my planned content this week to bring you the voices of two dear friends of mine as they share with us how to love more deeply and intentionally during the movements occurring with the Black community today. Kinte and Kerri are vulnerable, and you're going to hear them be raw and transparent as they share their hearts and insight as a means to educate and inform all of us what it means to listen more and love deeper right now and always. Kinte is 30 years old. He's from the Chicago area, and he grew up in a very diverse neighborhood. He was also the middle child of 7 children who were raised by their grandmother. Kerri is 28 years old. She's from the Milwaukee area, and she's a new mom to Caden, who's her baby boy, who is 2 months old. She is a special education teacher who's on summer break, and she just decided that she's taking a year off to stay at home. She just decided to take a year off with her son, and while she takes her years off, she's going to grow her health coach business and also be a fitness instructor. They're married, they live in the Milwaukee area, and they're a spiritually led family who wants to live healthy lives physically, financially, mentally, and of course, spiritually. And on today's episode, you get to hear their voices as they share more with us about what's going on in our world today and how we can relearn how to love people who are different than us. Kerri and Kinte, thank you guys so much for being willing to sit down with me today. Just being able to sit in a relaxed environment where the goal is just to listen, to be able to turn the mic over to you guys and be able to hear your hearts on so many of the things that are going on in our world right now. And so I just appreciate you so much for being a voice of change, being a voice on this platform, and just inviting other people to be lifelong learners and to learn right alongside me, who is very naive when it comes to this topic and things that you're experiencing all the time, things that the people who you love, the people who you're surrounding yourself with are going through as well. So today we are just here to listen to you and to give the mic over to you. The very first thing that I would love for you to share with us is just your feelings, your commentary on things that are going on right now, specifically with the Black Lives Matter, anti-racism movements. Why is it important? Why is it relatable? And why is it personal for you right now?
Yeah, for sure. I'll speak first on it. And we both appreciate the word movement because it is a movement, more just like, a temporary protest, because this is a daily life for not just only my husband and I, but, our brothers and sisters, our now 2-month-old son. And I think that's why it's personal to me now, being like, it always mattered, Kinte is my husband, fearing of him, like driving to the store, going to pick up some custard or something for us, those cravings, or my brother, 2 African-American men. I fear for those things. And I feel like now that I have a son, I'm like, what is his world going to look like growing up? And, I try to I'm going to get through the tears, but it's raw. So, I've seen things like, when does it become, or my son go from cute to a threat? That like really sits with me. Because I don't know. He's just a 2-month-old, like innocent child. And he's cute now, but then I see like all these mothers and sisters and families hurting for losing their loved ones. And I'm like, they lost like a child and they weren't a threat. And so that's hard for me to sit with. But going from the fear standpoint, I'm a natural worrier. So I'm really relying on my faith and putting it in God's hands and trusting his plan, because I can't control everything. So that's really hard for me is letting go and just fully relying on God and just praying. We always pray every night, every morning. And we just talk about, like, just let your love be present, let your light shine over all this darkness and evil, and let everyone just see the good in the world and your love. And so that's why it's like personal to me, and probably you. I mean, you're not a mom. Like, I mean, obviously Caden's our child, but I don't know. It's just this new love I have for my son. It's hard to describe. And I get, I fear for my life too, because I mean, I could just be driving or, just doing something daily, going for a walk with my son, and I might seem like I'm doing something wrong to someone and I could offend them, and you never know. So yeah, that's like my standpoint. I got through it. I'm proud of myself.
I'm very proud of you too. And anybody who has been a mom who's listening right now, I just appreciate so much transparency in relationships. And to hear Kerri right now share just so candidly about her feelings is so beautiful, and it needs to be heard. And if you are a new mom and you're listening to this right now, you may share similar fears. And I love how you highlighted the fact that people might look onto your baby right now and he's seen as adorable and little. And when does that turn into a threat? That's something that I've never had to question. Being a mom of two boys myself, I've never looked at Beckham and Rio and wondered that same question. So thanks for being real and sharing that perspective. It's already hard enough being a mom, only being 2 months postpartum and having all of the hormones and all of the other things. And the fact that you are sharing this and being just so willing is really important and so beautiful. So Kinte, I'll hand it over to you then to share next.
Yeah, definitely. Me and my wife, we have very similar views, but we're very complementary to each other on the same level. When she talks about this being more than just a protest and Black Lives Matters being a movement, that's something that hits hard with me. I don't watch the news. I don't get sucked into any media. But when you realize that there's other people outside of the bubble and circle that we live in the Midwest, whether it's Chicago, my hometown, or Milwaukee, my current town, and every little suburb in between, you realize that there are people protesting for the rights of African American people here in other countries. And this is a ripple effect that's impacting not just the world we live in, but the entire world as a whole. So that's very powerful and impactful. And so with the focus being on, doing everything we can to maximize and help Black people in America, I have a very strong stance on Liz, this is a message you're probably familiar with because we went to college together. Anytime we had a Bible class, we never focused on what separated this religion from that religion. We focused on what were the common denominators between the religions. And so when I sit back and I think of all the people in my life that have been impacted by this, it could be my family members who are law enforcers, who are actually going out there serving, protecting, putting their lives on the line, and their families kissing them, don't know if they're going to see them after they leave the home because of all the tension towards law enforcement. I have family and friends who are out there protesting and putting their lives at stake because who knows when a protest goes from peaceful to violent and who starts it and how that can quickly escalate and become a hostile environment. All the business owners who are being vandalized and broken into, and they're just trying to build a business to support their family. And now that business that they've worked so hard to build to serve the community with, it's being tortured and being broken down, and they have to deal with that. And these are things that I'm not seeing because I don't watch the news like I mentioned earlier. I'm seeing because I'm getting phone calls about it. I'm getting updates from my social media about, hey, this happened to my friend's business. This happened to my friend's home. It was vandalized, or their property, their vehicles. All these things are, in my mind, intangible, replaceable objects, but still it puts you in a hostile you don't feel safe during those times. And so one thing I try to do is figure out what's the common denominator for all these people. And what I've broken it down to is they all want safety, because it's risk everywhere in life. And everyone, whether you're law enforcement, whether you're a protester, a business owner, a homeowner, essential worker going to and from work, you want safety. You don't want your family to be stressed out if you're going to come home because of everything that's going on and the tension that's in the world. You want to protect not only your household, but your households of your business partners, your community, your church family, all of these groups and individuals that you're associated with. You want them to be safe during this time too. And then another common denominator between all of them is we're all looking for change. And so I think with everyone's so focused on how can we change, I don't want the theme to get caught up with how we're going to change, like this is the best political route to go, or this is the only avenue that will yield long-term results or success. I think if we focus on the simple thing of understanding why we're getting together, and my wife mentioned this, is out of love. Love your friends, love your neighbors. If we're looking for love, not only for ourselves, not only for our families, but for everyone around us, we're going to find a way to make sure that all Black people in America and all people across the globe are treated with love. And I'm a huge advocate for not putting Band-Aids on stuff. So a year or two from now, or 10 years from now, or 20 years from now, when my son is my age, I won't have to relive this moment.
Right.
I won't have. I'm pretty sure there are people who have grandparents who are living, or great aunts and uncles, and they've been through the civil rights movement. They're just looking at what's going on today as like a rerun of what they went through. And I don't want to go through that in the future. I want to actually be a part of the future that actually changes and actually progresses towards something that we all identify as loving each other. And that's powerful, and that's key for me. And I think that'll ease some tension, ease some worry, ease some fears that my wife experienced. And with us being spiritually led, we're definitely leaning on the Lord every single day to get to that place.
Thank you for sharing that, Kinte. I just think you hit on so many amazing points, thinking back to what you said about focusing on the things that don't divide us, but the things that can bring us together, focusing on not short-term change, but how can we look into the long term and how this affects so many parts of history already, but not wanting history to repeat itself again. So I think you're really wise in the route that you guys are taking, the stance that you're taking. And we just definitely want to link arms with you and join alongside the things that you're talking about. And the most important thing that you focused on was that love binds all, and love covers all, and love being the focus needs to be all of our driving forces, no matter who you are, no matter what you're doing right now within this movement, no matter how you're pushing for change, love needs to be the guiding force. And I just wanted to also ask if there was any Bible verses that you're really clinging to in this time, Bible verses that are helping you with these movements going on. And I know that you're a really spirit-led family. So what are things that you're clinging to in God's word right now?
I know for me personally, something that I know everyone's seeking for is peace. And the ultimate peace for me ties to the Bible verse, Hebrews chapter 13, verse 14. I'll read it out for you. It's, "For this world is not our permanent home. We're looking forward to a home yet to come." And when I hear that message, it gives me peace, because I know that everything that's going on this planet, on this world, I'm here for a reason to serve the purpose of the Lord, to let his light shine on it. But at the end of the day, this is not my home. This world will always be sinful. And the place where none of this tension, group division, this lack of peace exists is in our true home, and that's in heaven. So this Bible verse is something I cling to every single day.
And I think that is just so relatable in life, no matter what trauma, no matter what discrimination, no matter what is going on in your own personal life, whether we're talking about this topic or another topic, remaining to stay true in the word and in what God says is true. And the fact that we are only foreigners here, that this isn't our permanent residence, that we have something else as Christians, as followers of God to look forward to, is definitely a comforting thing. So thank you so much for sharing that passage with us. We're going to jump to talking a little bit more about the theme of season 2 of this Invited podcast. And when I started brainstorming for content, this wasn't part of my content, but I am just so humbled and honored that you guys would allow me to stop what my content was for this week and to be able to bridge what we're talking about on the Invited podcast, which is relearning what love is, and be able to shed light on relearning what it is to love people who are different than us. So if you don't mind just sharing, what does that mean? What does that mean for us to relearn what it is to love people who are different than us?
So I'll go first. I'll speak to that first. One thing that the listening part, like listening to learn and listening to understand, that's a big one. And it's not just for people who are of, the Black community. I myself am listening to learn. I'm from a mixed family. My mom is white and my dad is Black. So I got a little taste of a little bit everything. However, I have a different environment. Like I grew up from Kinte. I went to predominantly like white schools my whole life, even throughout college. And I guess that was like a choice. I went to a school out in Mequon, and teaching too. I teach in a predominantly white community. And so we've been exposed to different things, and I encourage other people, listen to learn new things, and not even just new things, just the history and different perspectives. And like I said, I'm listening to learn, and reflecting, because I realize I have different biases and stuff like that I grew up with. And so it's like I'm reflecting on my own things, but also just how Kinte said, this is not our permanent home, and we are just here to love each other. And the Bible verse that I keep going to is John 15, verse 12, love each other as I have loved you. God loves us unconditionally. There are no terms and conditions. He loves us because he created us. He doesn't love us because we have a certain skin color. He doesn't love us because we live in a certain neighborhood, dress a certain way, work a certain job, or what our role is in this world. And that's something I go back on. It's just like, we need to love because he loved us first. He created us in his own image. And just understanding that love simply is the answer. It sounds so much easier said than done. And I feel like I'm going rambling. It's just like it's just listening to learn and understand, so we can grow together and be reunited and walk this life in love. And so that's like where I'm coming from. And I'm guilty of having certain perspectives and biases and being uncomfortable with the things that you've been taught or the things that you think, and having difficult conversations. It's not easy. But we know that you have to get uncomfortable to grow. And I've been uncomfortable in many situations with conversations recently, in the past, and I'm sure I'll have plenty of uncomfortable conversations in the future. It's not easy to be uncomfortable, but I've learned so much. And when I kind of just shut my mouth and just sit back and listen, that's when I learn the most. Listen and then reflect before I speak. And so just hearing other people out, and I guess we just all want to be heard. That's where I'm coming from. So Long story short, listen to learn.
No, I love it. And I'm so appreciative too that you share the perspective that you do, because with you and Kinte being a part of different types of families, and then also growing up in different circumstances and going to different schools, and Kerri, you having a white mom, a Black dad, Kinte, you being raised by your grandmother and your siblings who are all Black as well, but your perspectives and where you're from and family dynamics and all of that give you different biases and different perspectives. And that's important to listen and learn to that as well. There's a spectrum of people who come from different walks of lives that we can listen to. And I love the fact that you're also listening and you're also trying to be uncomfortable. And I think that's a huge thing about what you said, is that we all just need to be a little uncomfortable right now as we wrestle through how to relearn to love people who are different than us.
Right. Exactly.
So to address the relearning, I took it as a two-part approach. One, when you're relearning, you have to look in every aspect in life internally. What do you know about yourself? What do you know about your biases? How do you conduct yourself? And a lot of times those answers come from your environment and your background and your history. So the better you understand the history of yourself, so as a Black person, the more I understand the history of Black people. And for me personally, that expands not just the history of Black people in America, but the history of Black people before America and many centuries before. The identity of people. I remember as a child growing up, I grew up in a diverse community, but I would also take random bus rides to other communities and just observe people. And I came across a Jewish community, and I walked up to a gentleman, and I thought he was Jewish because I was in a Jewish community. And he's like, "No, I'm from Ireland. I'm Irish." And so from that point going forward, I walked up and I said, "I can't assume I know who people are just from looking at them." One, I don't address people from Europe as, "Hey, you're a white person." I want to know the person's heritage and their culture, and I'll address them as such. Like, "Oh, you're Spanish, you're Irish, you're German," and that's how I identify them. To try to do that as a Black person, it's a little bit difficult because we don't really have our identities tied to us. It's something that we don't exactly know where we're from outside of the history that's taught to us in America. So for me, I feel very powerful knowing like more of an understanding of who I am as a Black person. I personally don't identify myself as what most people would consider as a minority. And that's because I've studied the history of what Black people are. And if you look at the census of the world, the minorities are not African American or African people. Africa is not a minority country. And so that's all internally. Internally, beyond that is I'm a Christian and I identify myself as a child of Christ. And for me to do anything, I have to move with Christ in the moment. And whether it's the good and sunny days where I'm on top of a mountain, or if it's the dark and misty days where I don't know what's going on, he's walking right beside me and he's helping me through it. So I identify as a Christian over everything, and I approach life as such. When it comes to learning externally, that's where it gets a little bit more uncomfortable because you can't control the external environments. You can't control how people receive the message you're trying to get, or if they don't understand the intentions behind your words, because I approach everything with love. And when I sit down with someone, I invite people actually to have conversations with me because I love understanding and learning, and being an active listener during those moments is very vital, because if we're going into the situation with questions in minds, but we already have answers in our head, then we're not being active listeners. We're not giving that person the true opportunity to help us learn and grow. And that's something I pray for every day, is for me to learn something new. And so externally, that's the tough part. And I think that's the part that a lot of people shy away from because they want to stay in their comfort zone and they want to stay where they feel that it's easier. But this is not the time to be within a comfort zone. This is time to have hard conversations, especially with people that you identify that you love, and that just spider web until more people have more conversations. And eventually that's going to turn into long-term change because everyone's having these conversations and it's more normalized and it's not rarity.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. If you guys could hear these sweet little cute coos, I almost said cues. These coos coming from Kinte, they're the sweetest thing. And I just wish that you could be sitting with us and just having this conversation and seeing this sweet little baby sitting here with us too. All his little noises and all his little movements are so adorable. And Kinte, thanks for helping us to shift our focus to things that we can do internally and externally. Being able to focus on both of those is so important in this journey to be uncomfortable, like you said, and to listen more than we speak. Okay, Kerri and Kinte, you have shared so many amazing things with us today. Thank you again for just taking the time as busy parents in this season of life and just sharing what it means to love you better, to be able to listen more than we speak, and to get uncomfortable. So I'm just going to close with allowing you to share any last remarks that you have or anything that you shared with us already that you really want to take home.
So we talked about the Black Lives Matter movement and what that means to us and how we relate to that. And an analogy that's been really sticking with me doing all this researching and listening is imagine that your house is on fire. And that is, the Black life, it's on fire. And then someone is saying, well, my house matters too, like all lives matter. Essentially, they do. However, this one house is on fire. And this is the one that needs help. We're going to put water on this house. We wouldn't want to put water on all the houses that aren't on fire. And so saying, my house matters because it's hurting. It's crumbling down into flames. And, here come the tears. And, everyone houses in that neighborhood needs to unite together to help that burning home and focus on that home that's hurting. And that's what this movement is about, saying Black lives do matter. And until we can realize that, we can't say that all lives matter, because every race, every religion, everything you can think of, every age, gender, they all matter. But until we focus on this one specific life, this movement, right now, that's the movement, that's the lives that are hurting right now and that need love and healing and just unity right now and need to be heard.
Beautiful. Thank you. All right, Kinte, any last minute things that you want to share? Any way you want to bring us home?
Yeah, definitely. I would say during the Black Lives Matter movement, it's easy to live in fear during these moments when you see the pain within your community, you see the pain within your friends and your family, whether it's from brutality of the police, whether it's from discrimination in the workplace, discrimination within like a school system or any aspect in life. Some way, somehow, you got to live beyond the fear and lean on the faith. And so as I'm going through this moment in history, this moment in my life, it's got me leaning more on the Lord, which internally makes me empowered. I feel very strong to wake up. I feel very strong to walk this earth with a purpose. I feel very strong and I feel privileged that I'm in this situation in this moment in history because I know I have the Lord with me. I know who I am as a Black person, not just a Black American, but just as a Black person on this earth, and how powerful that is, because there's a lot of things that the Black community does for the entire world, and not just looking at it from, I'm a citizen in Wauwatosa, Wisconsin right now. I'm so much more than that. And that empowers me to wake up and feel safe. And ultimately, no matter what happens, I know where my end game is, and it's going to be in heaven. There's always peace there. There's always love there. And so if I continue to live this life, whether I'm empowered, whether I'm surrounded by fear, tension, struggles, I know at the end of all of this, it's going to be peace. And that just gives me the ultimate peace as I go through this journey.
Thank you, guys. Thank you so much for sharing. Dear God, thank you so much for being in the presence of Kerri and Kinte today in order to listen to what they might want to share with the world. I just thank you for those that are listening today. I just pray that you give them ears to hear all the things that were said, that you give them knowledge from what was heard, that you give them, most importantly, love in their hearts, that they can hear everything that they just heard and they can desire to be educated, that they can grow internally and externally, that they can look at somebody who might be different than them and they can honor them. They can hear what they can do to be the change, and they can lead, most importantly, in love to others that are around them. I ask that anybody who is in a season right now of feeling discriminated against or just feeling judgment upon them, God, that you restore them with your strength, and to know that ultimately this is just a resting place for now on the journey of life. Being here on this earth is just temporary, God, and I just ask you to help us to look up, look to heaven, and look to our final destination, which is with you, Jesus, one day in heaven. Be with all of us to just listen more, to lean in, to help how we can, and to just love. In your name we pray. Amen.